the list from was the Hotel Motel Inspection Program. You've got a revised version of this, and I'll apologize for the revision because there's some confusion internally as to what how far we wanted to go in terms of describing the program. And we had a lot of information in there about a couple other programs in the metropolitan area that we can still give you if you're interested in it. We weren't ever really planning on implementing parts of those programs. So what I want to go over with you really is, what Tim's going to go over with you is really the parts that we think are most applicable to our current situations and what we want to accomplish with this. Again, once he's done, if you want to go into what Carrollton or Dallas do, we'll be happy to do it. But I didn't see much point in continuing that discussion if we weren't planning on making a recommendation in that regard. So, other than not go that far. So with that, Tim, go ahead and run through what we have.
Good. All right, last one of the day. I'm just saying, we took a look at a new program to address our hotels and motels here in the city. Currently in Lewisville, we have 23 hotels and motels, encompassing about 2,530 rooms, so a pretty significant number of buildings here. We have departmental SWOTs, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And one of our threats is an aging infrastructure, buildings, neighborhoods. Well, similar to Cleve's program that you just got the presentation on for code enforcement, we wanted to take a look at our hotel stock and how can we maybe keep that up to great standards. So the goal of this thing would be to ensure safe, clean, and sanitary conditions in our hotels. What are we looking at? What are we proposing? Well, we want to develop a hotel motel inspection program that's very similar or based upon our current multifamily or apartment program. So you guys are probably aware we have that program where we go out to every one of our apartments annually. We go inside units, a certain amount of units, and it's an all-encompassing program. It's conducted under the Fire Prevention Bureau with the fire inspector, but it's structural, it's health, it's electricity, it's HVAC. So we thought that it makes a lot of sense maybe to take a look at our hotels and bring those same type of inspection programs into our hotels so we don't have, so again, we can keep them up, we keep them safe and clean. To do this, we would need to create and act a hotel and motel ordinance and also a fee schedule possibly. Our goal would be to perform an inspection twice a year at each hotel, with the goal of trying to complete 100% inspections of each unit, or all of the units in the course of 2 inspections over the year. Okay. And to do that, we would propose to bring on a new fire inspector and train him to take him or her to take on this program. What would we want to look at? Outside, we want to look at the vegetation. We can read the slides. The sidewalks and driveways, the parking areas, are they all being kept clean? Are they being repaired? Litter and dumpsters. We don't want the trash overflowing and stuff like that in the dumpsters. The fencing, is that in good repair? Again, foundations, roof, chimneys, abandoned vehicles. We've been looking at all these things. Drainage, the structural integrity, exterior lighting, for safety. Is that all working? Building unit numbers for not only the occupants but also for first responders, so they go, they know where to go. Illegal signs or bandit signs. And these are just some ideas of things we want to look at in this program on the grounds. In the units, we're looking at stuff along these lines. Are they clean? Are there worn floors? Is the carpet in good repair? Is the floors in good repair? Curtains and walls, again, clean and sanitary conditions. The mattresses, we'd like to see those maintained. If there's stains or torn up, we'd like to ask those to be replaced. Working telephone for 911. That might be a provision of this ordinance for the safety of the occupants that they can dial 911. Windows, doors, peepholes, and locks, are those all functioning? Then for security, how's the electrical system and the lights in the units? Do they have hot water? Is that working? I'm not saying there's a problem today, but it's addressing it so there won't be a problem down the road. HVAC, is that working? Clean and air. Insects, bed bugs, rodents. Bed bugs is a big thing right now in hotels, and across the board, but that's a lot of concern out there. Are they weather tight? You know. How about the linen? We're looking at the linen being kept clean and maybe have an ordinance where it says it needs to be changed after guest, changed after each guest, or at least once a week they get new linen. Most hotels probably already do this, but maybe we want to verify that that's being done. Fire protection is another thing, obviously a key safety feature. You know, we'll look at all the different fire safety components in the building, at least twice a year. These are high occupancy buildings. You know, what's one of our hotels has 424 units in it, I believe. Yeah, that's a lot of folks staying in there, so we want to really stay on top of the fire safety equipment. And also with our new smoking ordinance, we just enacted this last year. You know, we'll make sure that's being adhered to. How do we pay for this? As you're aware of fire prevention, we do our annual inspection on all of our commercial occupancies and our multi-family program. We do bill for that service. So we just came up with an idea. We were proposing maybe to do $25 a unit. We charge $25 per unit for the year, okay? $25 for re-inspection. If there's violations, we have to go back out there and dedicate more staff time. That'd be a re-inspection fee. We have to go back out there 2 or more times, $50 a unit. This fee structure is just an idea, okay? We based us upon trying to make the program pay for a new body. But that was based on being 100% if we build for 100% of the units. And again, that's all open for debate how we go. It's just an idea. And it's also somewhat in line with other hotel programs in the Metroplex and what they're charging. So if you look at this bottom part, again, 100% collection or 100% of the units are billed, it would generate almost $59,000 more than the fire prevention inspection today that we charge for, more than we would, you know, or extra, I won't say extra, but increased revenue. Maybe $79,000, $80,000 if we assume 25% re-inspection fees. And the cost of a current fire inspector, you can see, is $67,000. So it just gives you an idea of maybe a way to make this program offset itself. I know it's probably pretty hard to read this, and it's in your backup diagrams, but what we tried to do here, we show all of our hotels, the number of units, the proposed fee of $25, and then the third column is the total proposed annual fee if we billed for every unit that was in there. The current fire inspection fee is what we're charging today for just the fire inspection, not this all-encompassing or all-risk type program that we're looking at. And the last column shows you the increase from the current fire inspection fee to maybe what we would charge the hotels for this service in the future.
So just so I'm clear, the proposed new inspection would be inclusive of fire inspection?
Yes, we'd also do the fire inspection.
So we'll double dip that.
Yep. Okay. And then we'd probably look at, you know, we're thinking of doing this twice a year as opposed to the current time we go out there once a year, which might, again, with a high number of people that are staying in it that aren't familiar with their, you know, the layout of the stuff, the hotels, they are at home. We want to make sure those fire safety features are really kept up. And again, I can't stress enough, this is just one way to look at it. We're looking at maybe if we just look, maybe we just inspect the units that are vacant, as opposed to, you know, going in and knocking on a door, maybe some legal mechanism to get into a room if it's occupied. If it's vacant, then we go in and inspect it, and maybe we just bill for the units we inspect. Okay. And I just did some math just to give you an idea since we're on the numbers. James was kind enough to provide the numbers. On the whole, over the last year, we're almost 67% occupancy rate in the city. So I figure, okay, so there's 33% roughly vacant in every time. So if we take 33% of that 59,000 increase, and brings it down to about a $19,000 increase for our current revenues. So different ways we can do it, we'd be looking for direction.
One of the issues with what you inspect is currently with the multifamily program, we attempt to inspect every unit.
No.
Or sampling units.
Yeah. If we go to every
It's a random sampling of units, but they might be occupied. Those
It
units
could
might
be occupied.
And so if we're attempting to do 100% of the hotel units, then invariably at some point in time, one of those units or more is going to be occupied. That raises some other questions about how you go about making that inspection and what you have to provide in terms of notice to the owner of the hotel, and perhaps what they have to provide in terms of notice to their customers. So that's something that we need to talk through, both internally and with the industry, and to figure out a way of doing that. Obviously, we'd like to see every unit. You don't want to have 8 units looking great and the other 2 units being totally against what we're trying to accomplish here. We also have a large number of extended stay hotels, and we're beginning to see what appears to be a trend toward extended stays in those extended stay hotels. And so you have people, we actually have evidence of people staying in some of these hotels for lengthy periods of time. I'm talking years at a time. And so, again, you want to be able to see that that's actually functioning as a hotel unit in some shape, form, or fashion. If it's not, then what is it? Is it an apartment complex? If it's in the wrong zoning district, or is it something else? So, again, trying to keep ahead of the curve and make sure that it's a viable hotel use in a viable hotel district, and it's being maintained as a hotel is part of the purpose of this. And again, to ensure the public's health, safety, and welfare and staying at those locations. So that would be the primary purpose, much like it was with the multifamily program, much like it is with the single-family rental inspection program.
Tim, would you answer for me? I mean, I feel like I see a lot of duplication here from the other inspection programs that we have ongoing. That's my first thoughts on it.
Duplication?
And duplication.
In what sense?
In the sense of what's being looked at.
Oh, it's exactly the same thing, but we don't look at that right now in the hotels.
And also, where is the authority for it, for these things? Like, as an example, you have here heating, air conditioning. I'm not aware of any authority where air conditioning is even required.
My thing would be to, if it's there, to verify that it's working and in working condition.
We're not saying that you have to have it, we're saying that if you have it, it has to be in good working condition, not a fire hazard or electrical hazard.
Okay.
Same thing with a fence, you don't have to have a fence, but if you have one, it's in good repair. So there's a lot of those that are subject to whether they have it or they don't have it.
Good job so far. In the original, my original paperwork that I had
Yeah,
before
sorry about
somebody
that.
upgraded me, I'm just teasing with her. You had a sheet in there called the CFS chart, the calls for service chart. I noticed that it wasn't in your presentation. Is there a reason why it's...
I took that out because it relates to primarily the linkage of the health, safety, welfare issues that we're talking about here with public safety related issues that were the focus of the Built and Knowledge program, specifically Built program.
I mean, this is...
They had a program where they looked at the calls for service on a particular piece of property as an element of a licensing requirement.
Are we...
And we are not suggesting that you do that in this particular program.
Okay.
Now, police and inspections can still talk, and they may know where there's frequent calls for service and what might need to be done one way or other by one of those departments to deal with those calls for service. But we're not linking those calls for service with any kind of licensing procedure or revoking of such a license. We're strictly focusing on the code-related elements related to building, electrical, plumbing, basic health, safety, welfare.
So it's just kind of changed since from the first...
Yeah, that was the element of confusion I was referring to before.
Oh.
Because what they were trying to do is tell you, okay, you can go so far, but you could also look at what Carrollton's doing, and here's what Carrollton's doing.
I just saw this chart here that calls for service as a good tool to kind of see where the main problems are, you know.
It's still out there as a tool, but we're not suggesting that you link that again to this particular program.
Okay.
Calls for service are calls for service, and the police department will continue to deal with those through their own mechanisms. And of course, work with property owners to try to reduce those calls for service. But we just have to deal with those separately.
Yeah, I just thought that this program would have been more of an encouragement for the property owners to help, keep these down.
Well, you can go further. I'm not saying you can't go further. We're just not recommending that. But if you want to go further along that continuum, we'd have to investigate how that might be done in a fashion that makes sense.
I accept you not recommending it at this point. But it seems if it gets worse, it's a good tool. Thank you.
So who makes or how do you determine the authority for curtains and stained floors?
Well, you would just insert that into your ordinance if that's
Or
something you want to.
stained mattresses?
That would give you authority of the city to regulate the health and safety and welfare of that particular location. If you
What
feel
the-
like stained floors are a negative contributing cause to the health, safety, and welfare of a visitor, then you would insert that into your
Well,
ordinance.
wouldn't there be an overriding authority on that, the health and safety code? Wouldn't they have,
Some
whatever their
existing
regular?
code,
Pardon
an
me?
existing code?
Yes.
There may be. We haven't gone into detail of looking at any kind of existing. Obviously, you have overriding building codes and electric codes and plumbing codes that we would be utilizing.
Okay.
Whether or not there's anything else that you can rely on, we don't know at this point in time.
All right.
If not, then you would have to make your own, and that would involve a lot of crafting of language and setting the standard that was reasonable and appropriate.
Mattress police, huh?
And also,
I'll
Mr.
tear
Chairman,
that tag off the mattress.
to my knowledge, we're not really going into the units looking for those things, even if there is other ordinances or codes that may speak to that. That's something we're trying to accomplish with this. We do our fire safety inspections, pools, if there's pools, we do stuff like that. Code enforcement, maybe looking at grounds and stuff. But this would be a point person that's really dedicated to the motel stock of the city is kind of what we're thinking about. We've really seen some great strides with the multifamily by having one dedicated person to the multifamily product out there. Our apartments are really being kept up nice, and it's been a great relationship to have one person who's developed relationships with the management and owners of the apartment complexes, and it helps that communication between the city and the business owner. So we're kind of thinking that may also come into play with the hotel program.
Wouldn't that also be relative to what Cleve has done with his inspection program?
I think it dovetails with it.
Having assigned a particular inspector to an area, that motel or hotel may fall in that zone? I mean, would that address what you're saying?
And I think if what you're asking, could the code enforcement person also take on this program? Like that same person? assigned to that
And
area?
create that relationship that you're advocating?
I mean, we could look at that, Mr. Vaughn, but I don't honestly think, and I don't want to speak for Cleve, but this is a very time-consuming program. When I spoke with other jurisdictions that have this, it's going to take a full-time person their entire work year to be able to do what we're proposing or we're thinking about. So with all the duties of a code enforcement officer, I don't think they'd have the time to do the thoroughness of the program that we're thinking about.
Leroy, were you asking whether or not what he's suggesting here would provide the same level of focus as Cleve provides by focusing those code enforcement officers on those
No,
zones?
I was actually asking, and it was in relationship to hiring a specific person to do this.
Okay. Just want to make sure. you answered the question.
Well, just one last slide, just kind of some for clarification.
we're thinking if we're directed to develop this program, the ordinances and whatnot that we've been speaking to, we would incorporate that into the fire code just as we have the multifamily program and the smoking ordinance. So we would treat for enforcement, any violation of the hotel motel would be a violation of the fire code in the city. And that would be our enforcement actions, or our enforcement mechanism.
So,
And that's kind of it in a nutshell from my end.
yeah, it's actually a fairly simple approach, and again, I would liken it to the multifamily inspection program and the rental inspection program that you have currently. It's actually more akin to the multifamily because Tim's people are already building the multifamily units and conducting fire inspections, so it's a little better in that sense than the single family, which is a voluntary program that we have a certain level of non-compliance with.
This will be a little bit easier to track too, because we know what these facilities are, where these facilities are, where sometimes the rental, you don't know.
They kind of vet it.
Right.
The home rental inspection program, that's voluntary.
Currently, but Cleve's working on an ordinance that came out of the recommendation from the Neighborhood Preservation Committee to make it quote mandatory. We haven't passed that yet.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Anybody ask any
That's
other
good.
questions on that?
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
We got a little bit. You want to go start with something?
No, can't do that. No, I can't.
You already did one mid-session, right?
Yeah, we did that while you were down. We're actually caught up.
Nothing that you got tomorrow?
Well, I got stuff tomorrow, but I think.
No, I mean, nothing you
And,
know.
when you went to the veterans, I was supposed to go back and put it. Most of
I'll follow up the previous session. Does anybody have any questions over the stuff that we've gone over today?
No, it's good stuff. I really appreciate staff's hard work. You can tell there was a lot of thought and effort put into all the stuff that's been presented so far.
I agree, 100%. Outstanding.
You want to spend any more time on any of those?
Any more time?
I guess, yeah, I kind of like to say, has anybody seen any changes or modifications to the programs that we've seen? Is everybody pretty comfortable with what you've seen so far? Not just this last hotel motel program, but all the code enforcement program we saw, the 2025 plan, the lake project, economic development report, catalyst retail.
Maybe if we have a little time and no one else any other suggestion, for my edification, maybe Claude or Donna could go back over that bond program, item number 5. You know, just get the high points.
Okay.